All right. Ready to dive deep into some pre-interview prep for all you aspiring sustainability consultants out there.
Sounds good to me.
Our source today is going to be this really interesting article from Indeed.com about,
Indeed.com? Okay.
yeah, they list out quite a few common interview questions that you might,
Oh, that's helpful.
yeah, you might get asked if you're trying to land that dream sustainability consultant role.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just going to like read through the questions, though. We're going to unpack them.
Okay.
We're going to look at what the interviewers are actually looking for when they ask you these things,
All right.
and try to give you the tools to craft some amazing answers
Cool.
that really highlight your knowledge, skills, and experience.
Yeah. I think what I found really interesting in this Indeed.com article was that they emphasize that it's not just about like having the textbook definitions.
Right.
It's about showing that you can think critically about sustainability challenges and then how you would actually like
Right.
apply those principles to a real world
Okay.
setting.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we know you've done your homework, but can you actually walk the walk?
Yeah.
So how about we break down like what interviewers are really looking for when they're grilling you in these interviews?
Yeah, so the source highlights kind of three key areas.
Yeah.
First of all, they want to see that you have a solid understanding of those core sustainability principles.
Okay.
Second, they're looking for strong communication skills.
Right.
Because you're going to have to be explaining some complex ideas in a clear and engaging way.
Especially to people who maybe don't already understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then third, problem solving is key.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to be faced with unique challenges, and they want to see how you approach them.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But I think like for our listeners, can you give like a real world example of how those three areas
Yeah.
might actually connect?
Totally. So let's say you're working with a company and they're trying to reduce their carbon footprint, right?
Okay.
You need a deep understanding of the environmental impact of their operations. But you also need to be able to communicate those findings to all the different stakeholders.
Oh, yeah.
So, the engineers and executives, the investors,
Yeah.
in a way that like resonates with them and motivates action.
And then you need to be able to problem solve. Like, okay, now that we know this is the impact,
Exactly.
how do we actually address it?
Right, come up with creative solutions that address those impacts while also aligning with the company's business goals.
Yeah, it's not just about like knowing the science. It's about
Totally.
being able to connect the dots
Right.
and come up with practical solutions
Yeah.
that work for everybody involved.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to kind of help you do today.
Awesome.
We're going to dive into some of these common questions and explore like how to craft those answers that really showcase,
Yeah.
your knowledge, your skills, and your experience.
All right, I'm ready to unpack some interview questions.
Okay.
So this Indeed.com article, they provide quite a few sample answers, but I think we can go beyond just the sample answers. For sure. And really dig into like what makes a stellar response.
Okay.
So like one of the first questions is a classic, can you describe the three pillars of sustainability?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like most people who are, applying for these roles, they're going to be able to just rattle off,
Yeah.
Environment, economy, society.
Right.
But is there a better way to approach this question?
I think there is. Instead of just like listing the pillars,
Okay.
try weaving in a real world example that kind of highlights how they're all interconnected.
Okay.
You could talk about a company that prioritized short-term profits over,
Oh, right.
environmental protection.
At the expense of...
Right. And
Yeah.
how that ultimately led to social backlash and financial losses.
Oh, interesting.
So that kind of demonstrates a deeper understanding of
Yeah.
how these pillars are intertwined.
It's like, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's not just about like reciting
Exactly.
the textbook definition. It's about like showcasing your understanding of like the complexities and the
Yeah.
potential pitfalls
Yeah,
of, sustainability.
totally.
Okay, what about the question, how do you stay updated on sustainability developments?
Mm-hmm.
So the source mentions industry publications, but are there like
Mm.
specific resources that you would recommend?
Yeah, industry publications are good, but to really stand out, I would recommend diving into reports from organizations like the UN Environment Program
Okay.
or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
IPCC. Yeah.
So those offer like in-depth analyses of global trends and emerging
Those are
challenges.
great.
Yeah.
And for our listeners who might not be familiar with those organizations, can you give us a quick rundown of like what they do?
Yeah, so the UN Environment Program is a leading global authority on environmental issues.
Okay.
They provide assessments, they develop policy recommendations,
Okay.
and promote international cooperation.
Gotcha.
And then the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC as we call
Right.
it, focuses specifically on climate change.
Okay.
So they assess the science, the impacts, the potential responses.
That's helpful.
Yeah, so both of those are like essential resources
Brilliant.
for anyone working in the field.
It's important to not only stay updated, but to be able to explain like where that information is coming from.
Right. It shows you're not just passively consuming information, but actively engaging with it.
Yeah.
And you can explain its relevance to others.
Okay, let's tackle a question that I think often trips people up.
Okay.
Can you explain the concept of an ecological footprint?
Oh, yeah.
It's a common term, but it can be a little tricky to explain in a way that's both like accurate and easy to understand.
Right. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Your ecological footprint measures the amount of biologically productive land and water area
Okay.
that's needed to produce all the resources you consume
Okay.
and then absorb the waste that you generate.
Okay.
So it's like calculating how much of the planet you're using to support your lifestyle.
So if I eat a lot of meat
Yeah.
and drive a gas-guzzling car
Oh.
and buy tons of clothes,
Yeah.
my footprint's probably pretty big.
Probably pretty big. Yeah. And the goal is to try to minimize that impact, right?
Right.
By making more sustainable choices. So opting for a plant-based diet,
Good.
using public transportation,
Yeah.
buying secondhand clothing, all of that can help reduce our footprint.
Okay, that's a really clear explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I think our listeners are starting to get the hang of this.
Good.
But let's up the ante a little bit
Okay.
with a question that I think is a little more challenging.
Yeah.
What strategies would you follow to convince a skeptical stakeholder about the benefits of sustainability?
Oh, yeah.
So this is where those communication skills
yeah.
really come into play.
It's all about understanding their perspective
Okay.
and tailoring your approach accordingly so instead of like lecturing them about,
Yeah.
the environmental benefits, try framing sustainability in a way that resonates with their values and priorities.
Oh, interesting.
So, for example, if you're talking to a CFO, you might emphasize the cost savings
Oh, right.
associated with energy efficiency or waste reduction.
Okay, so it's about finding that common ground
Yeah,
and showing how sustainability aligns with their existing goals,
exactly.
rather than being like this totally separate thing
Right.
that they have to do on top of everything else.
Yeah, and remember, data is your friend.
Oh, yeah.
Be prepared with those concrete examples and case studies
Yeah,
that demonstrate those tangible benefits of sustainable practices.
that makes sense. Okay, so let's imagine you're in an interview
Okay.
and the interviewer throws you this curveball.
All right.
Can you describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision related to sustainability?
Yeah.
What kind of scenario could our listeners use to illustrate, their decision-making skills?
So imagine you're working on a project and there's pressure to cut corners on sustainability measures
Right.
to meet a tight deadline or a really tight budget.
Right.
So how do you balance those competing priorities? That's where your leadership and your communication skills come in. You might need to advocate for a more sustainable approach, even if it means pushing back on deadlines
Yeah,
or challenging the status quo.
that's a tough situation.
It is.
And it kind of highlights the fact that sustainability isn't always like straightforward.
Exactly.
There are trade-offs and difficult choices,
Right.
that have to be made.
Yeah, a good answer to this question is going to showcase your ability to think critically,
Okay.
weigh different factors, and make a decision that aligns with your values and the long-term
Yeah.
vision for
Yeah.
sustainability. So it's about demonstrating your ability to navigate those gray areas.
Yeah,
Not just spout off like the right answer.
right. Okay, I think our listeners are starting to feel a lot more confident
Good.
about tackling these questions. But before we move on to some of the like more in-depth ones,
Okay.
let's lighten things up a little bit
Right.
with a question that's a bit more personal.
Okay.
What sustainable choices do you make in your everyday life? Now, this might seem like a softball question,
Yeah.
but I actually think it's a great opportunity to showcase your passion
Yes.
and commitment to sustainability.
Yeah, it's a chance to show that you're not just talking the talk, but you're walking the walk
Yeah.
in your own life.
Right.
So, for example, I've been trying to reduce my meat consumption,
Okay.
opting for more plant-based meals.
Yeah.
It's been a fun challenge, and I've discovered some delicious new recipes along the way.
I'm with you on that. I've been trying to be more mindful about my energy consumption at home.
Yeah.
I even got one of those smart thermostats
Oh, nice.
that learns your schedule and like adjusts the temperature accordingly.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much of a difference these small changes can make.
Totally. It's all about finding what works for you and making those small, consistent changes that add up over time.
Exactly. And I think that's a great message for our listener.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect, but every sustainable choice you make,
Right.
no matter how small, contributes to a bigger picture.
Totally. And those personal experiences make your answers more relatable and authentic.
Right.
So you can connect with the interviewer on a deeper level.
Okay, so now that we've covered some of the basics, let's get ready to dive into the really meaty questions.
Okay.
The ones that will really challenge you to think strategically and showcase your expertise.
Yeah.
Ready to take it to the next level?
Bring it on. I'm always up for a challenge, especially when it comes to sustainability.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, so let's delve into some of these more strategic questions.
Okay.
One that often comes up is, how do you measure the success of your sustainability initiatives?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's not just about implementing programs. It's about tracking their impact.
Right.
Demonstrating their value.
It's like any other business initiative. You got to be able to show results.
Exactly.
But how do you measure something as multifaceted as sustainability?
Right. Well, it starts with setting clear and measurable goals. So, for example, if a company is aiming to reduce their carbon emissions, you'd need to establish a baseline and then track their progress over time.
Okay.
So you could use metrics like greenhouse gas emissions per unit of production.
Okay.
Or the percentage of energy sourced from renewables.
Okay. That's for environmental impact. But what about the social and economic aspects of sustainability? How do you measure those?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
You could track employee engagement in sustainability initiatives, measure the company's impact on local communities, or assess the diversity of their supply chain.
Okay.
It's about looking at the whole picture and demonstrating how sustainability creates value for all stakeholders.
So it's like telling a compelling story with data.
Exactly.
Showing how sustainability is not just a feel-good initiative,
Right.
but like a core driver of business success.
Exactly.
Okay, here's a question that I think probably makes some people sweat.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of a sustainability report you have created or contributed to?
Oh, yeah.
What if our listener hasn't had the chance to work on like a full-blown report yet?
Totally. That's okay. Even if you haven't authored a report, you can still showcase your knowledge of best practices.
Okay.
You could mention the GRI standards,
Oh, yeah.
which are a globally recognized framework for sustainability reporting.
For our listeners who might not be familiar, can you just like break down what the GRI standards are?
Right.
And why they're important?
Yeah, so the GRI standards provide a comprehensive set of guidelines for companies to disclose their economic, environmental, and social performance.
Okay.
So they help standardize reporting,
Right.
making it easier for stakeholders to compare companies and assess their sustainability progress.
So it's like a universal language for sustainability reporting.
Yeah.
Ensuring transparency and accountability. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into a question that I think really gets to the heart of the challenges of sustainability consulting. How would you handle a situation where sustainability considerations conflict with business goals? This one seems like a real head scratcher.
It can be tricky, for sure. Often it boils down to short-term profits versus long-term sustainability.
Right.
In these situations, it's crucial to remember that sustainability is not about sacrificing profitability. It's about finding those innovative solutions that create value for both the business and the environment.
So it's not an either situation.
Right.
It's about reframing the conversation.
Exactly.
And finding that sweet spot where sustainability and profitability align.
Right.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say a company is considering switching to a more sustainable packaging material, but it's initially more expensive.
Okay.
A good sustainability consultant wouldn't just focus on those upfront costs.
Right.
They'd explore the potential long-term benefits. Reduced waste, a stronger brand reputation, potentially even increased customer loyalty.
Right.
And make a compelling case for the investment.
I see your point. It's about taking a holistic view.
Yeah.
And highlighting that interconnectedness of sustainability and business success.
Right.
It's not just about doing what's right for the planet. It's also about what's right for the business.
Yeah.
In the long run.
In the long run.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
And talk about performance evaluation.
All right.
One question the source lists is, how would you approach a performance review for a sustainability initiative?
Okay.
This might seem a bit mundane,
Yeah.
but I imagine it's crucial
Totally.
for ensuring accountability and continuous improvement.
Absolutely. A well-structured performance review is essential for tracking progress, identifying areas for improvement, and celebrating successes.
Okay.
It starts with setting clear and measurable objectives at the outset.
So you're saying you need a roadmap
Yeah.
before you even start the journey. What kind of objectives are we talking about?
So, for example, if the initiative aims to reduce energy consumption,
Okay.
you might set a target for a specific percentage reduction within a defined time frame.
Okay.
During the performance review, you would assess whether that target was met, analyze the factors that contributed to the success or hindered progress,
Right.
and identify areas for improvement in the future.
So it's a continuous cycle of setting goals, measuring progress,
Yeah,
and adapting your approach
exactly.
based on what you learn along the way.
And remember, a performance review shouldn't just focus on what went wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's also an opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate achievements,
Right.
which boosts morale and motivates continued efforts.
Okay. I'm sensing a theme here.
Okay, what's that?
It's all about being strategic, data-driven, and adaptable.
I like it.
But let's zoom out a bit
Okay.
and talk about the bigger picture.
All right.
The source asks, what are the key challenges facing the field of sustainability today?
Oh, that's a big one.
This is a chance for our listener to showcase their understanding of the global context.
Yeah, well, there's certainly no shortage of challenges.
Right.
Climate change is at the forefront,
Yeah.
with its far-reaching impacts on ecosystems, communities, and economies. We also need to address issues like resource depletion,
Right.
biodiversity loss, and social inequality.
Wow, it sounds a bit overwhelming.
It can be.
Yeah. But I guess that's why sustainability professionals are in such high demand.
Right.
They're the ones tackling these complex challenges head on.
Exactly. And despite the challenges, there's a growing awareness of the urgency and importance
That's a good...
of sustainability.
Yeah.
More and more businesses are recognizing that sustainability is not just a nice to have,
Right.
but a necessity for long-term success.
It's encouraging, but it brings up another challenge.
Okay.
How would you propose a new sustainability project to an organization with limited resources? Not every company has a bottomless budget for green initiatives.
Right. You're absolutely right. That's where creativity and prioritization come into play.
Okay.
You could start by conducting a materiality assessment,
Okay.
identifying the sustainability issues that are most relevant to the business and its stakeholders.
Hold on. Could you explain what you mean by materiality?
Oh, yeah.
For those who might not be familiar with the term.
So in the context of sustainability, materiality refers to the issues that are most significant to a company's economic, environmental, and social impacts,
Okay.
as well as to its stakeholders' interests.
Okay.
It's about focusing on the areas where you can make the biggest difference.
So it's about being strategic
Yes.
and focusing your efforts where they matter most,
Exactly.
especially when resources are limited.
Especially when resources are limited.
What else could our listener do to convince a company to invest in a sustainability project?
You could propose solutions that offer a clear return on investment,
Okay.
like energy efficiency upgrades that reduce operating costs.
Yeah.
Or you could explore partnerships with other organizations to share resources and expertise.
Great ideas. It's about thinking outside the box
Yeah.
and finding those win-win scenarios.
Right.
Now, let's jump into the future for a moment.
Okay.
One question asks, in your opinion, what is the future of sustainability consulting?
Ooh, I like that one.
Any predictions?
I believe we'll see a shift from a compliance-driven approach
Okay.
to a more holistic and integrated one. Sustainability will become increasingly embedded in business strategy,
Yeah?
not just a separate department or initiative.
It's like we were saying earlier.
Right.
Sustainability and profitability aren't mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
They're two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin. And as technology advances,
Yeah.
I think we'll see more sophisticated tools for data analysis and reporting,
Okay.
allowing companies to measure their impact more effectively and demonstrate the value of sustainability.
Okay. I'm excited about the future of sustainability.
Me too.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
With a question about metrics.
Right.
What key metrics would you use to evaluate a company's sustainability performance?
Okay, well, we've already touched on some, greenhouse gas emissions,
Right.
energy consumption, water usage, waste diversion rates.
Right. But remember, it's not just about environmental metrics.
Yes.
We also need to consider
Totally.
social and governance factors.
Right.
Like employee well-being,
Mm.
community engagement, and ethical sourcing practices.
Exactly. And it's important to choose metrics that are relevant to the company's industry and
Yeah.
specific context.
Yeah.
What matters for a manufacturing company might be different for a tech startup
Right.
or a retail chain.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one last question that I'd love to explore.
Okay.
How have you promoted sustainable practices within an organization?
Ooh.
This is a chance for our listener to really shine
Yes.
and showcase their experience and leadership skills.
This is where you want to tell your story.
Right.
Share specific examples of projects you've led, initiatives you've implemented, or even small changes you've made that have had a positive impact.
And don't forget to quantify your results.
Yes.
Did you reduce energy consumption by a certain percentage?
Right.
Divert a specific amount of waste from landfills?
Exactly.
Those numbers really bring your story to life.
Yeah.
And demonstrate your impact.
And even if you haven't had a formal leadership role, you can still highlight how you've influenced change within your team or department.
Right.
Maybe you encouraged your colleagues to adopt more sustainable practices
Right.
or advocated for a new company policy. Every action counts.
Yeah, every action counts. Okay, wow. I feel like we really covered a lot of ground today.
I know, right?
From understanding the core principles of sustainability
Yeah.
to tackling those tricky interview questions. I feel like we've given our listeners like a solid foundation for success.
Yeah, I agree. We explored not just like the what of sustainability, but also the how to communicate effectively,
Right.
how to measure impact, how to navigate challenging situations.
It's like we equipped our listeners with a toolkit
Totally.
for navigating the world of sustainability consulting.
Yeah.
But it's not just about acing the interview, right?
Right.
It's about embracing a mindset
Yeah.
of continuous learning and growth.
Absolutely. A field is always evolving.
Yeah.
So it's crucial to stay curious, seek out new knowledge, and be adaptable
Yeah.
in the face of new challenges.
Speaking of challenges,
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge that like
Mm-hmm.
working in sustainability
Yeah.
can sometimes feel daunting.
It can.
The problems are complex, the stakes are high,
Mm-hmm.
progress can feel really slow at times.
That's true. But it's also incredibly rewarding. You're
Yeah.
working on issues that matter. You're making a tangible difference, and you're contributing to a more sustainable future.
And I think that sense of purpose
Yeah.
is what really drives a lot of people in this field.
Totally.
It's not just a job, it's a calling.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that passion and commitment that's going to shine through your interviews.
It will.
So as you prepare for that big day,
Yeah.
remember to be authentic, be confident, and let your enthusiasm for sustainability shine through.
I love that advice.
Be yourself, be passionate, and be ready to make a difference.
Make a difference.
Now, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'd love to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I'm all ears. What is it?
It's okay. So we talked a lot about the role of businesses
Right.
and driving sustainability.
Mm.
But what about the role of individuals?
Oh, yeah.
How can we each in our own lives
Right.
contribute to a more sustainable future?
That's such an important question.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the challenges, but
Yeah.
ultimately change starts with each of us.
Mm.
The choices we make every day, What we eat, how we travel, what we buy, it all has an impact.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play,
Yes.
no matter how small it might seem.
And that's what makes this journey so exciting.
Yeah.
It's a collective effort, and we all have the power to make a difference.
So to our listener, as you embark on your career in sustainability consulting,
Yeah.
remember that you're not just joining a profession,
Right.
you're joining a movement.
A movement that's shaping the future of our planet.
And we can't wait to see the amazing things that you accomplish.
Yeah, best of luck with those interviews.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference.